New UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has been facing off against Labour leader Keir Starmer in his first Prime Minister's questions in Parliament, with the two clashing over the economy and also standards in the Conservative Party. Sunak took over from Liz Truss on Tuesday, who only moved into 10 Downing Street in early September, but she was forced to resign after her economic strategy sparked market volatility. The new Prime Minister has also decided to push back a fiscal statement which was designed to calm concern amongst international investors about the UK's public finances from the 31st of October back to the 17th of November. That's also been upgraded to a full autumn statement.
While the party opposite remains soft on crime and in favour of unlimited immigration.
All right, in a second we're going to cross live to our correspondent in London, but first we're going to get some analysis on all of these incredible events that we've seen in British politics over the last week or so. We're joined live by Lord Desai, who's an economist and also a member of the House of Lords and was previously a long-term member of the Labour Party. Lord Desai, thank you very much for joining us. I just want to get your reaction in terms of Rishi Sunak taking over as Prime Minister, the first British Asian Prime Minister of this country.
Well, it shows two things. Firstly, that the Conservative Party was pretty desperate to finally arrive at a Prime Minister who would last and who could take care of the financial problems. But secondly, it is a credit to David Cameron, who was Prime Minister 7 years ago, that he spotted the potential for middle-class immigrant population which are aspiring and which are talented and who are skilled. And it is his bold experiment with recruiting people from immigrant communities that has now paid off in terms of Rishi Sunak getting to the top.
And as an economist, what do you make of this first major decision that we've seen from Rishi Sunak deciding to delay that fiscal statement that was scheduled for the 31st of October and also upgrading it to a full autumn statement?
Well, when Jeremy Hunt declared that he would do a statement on 31st of October, things are pretty dire because Liz Truss had made that very drastic choice about a big tax cut, or rather her Chancellor had done, and that decision had to be cancelled. The markets were very unhappy. They were all selling British gilts. So I think that needed a very urgent reassurance in the market that Jeremy Hunt, as a new Chancellor, was going to give them a reassuring statement. But in the meantime, when Rishi Sunak got appointed as Prime Minister, he has a reputation of fiscal soundness. He was always talking on about fighting inflation, balancing the budget during the contest with Liz Truss. So the markets calmed down, and the yield on British gilts has gone back to normal. Therefore, the government has a bit more time. And normally the autumn statement gets made in round about the time that Jeremy Hunt is making it. So I think the government has 1, 2 or 3 weeks grace period to be able to do a proper financial statement in proper time in mid-November.
Lord Desai, stand by for a second. I believe we are now joined by our London correspondent, Alex Isat. Alex, thanks for being with us. If you could just catch us up on some of the key moments in this first clash inside Parliament at PMQs between Rishi Sunak and the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer. Alex, if you can hear me, our London correspondent, Alex Isat, I'll just ask that question again. If you could just catch us up on the action inside Parliament in the last few minutes or so. How did the first clash between Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer play out? We are struggling to connect to our London correspondent Alex Isat, so we're going to go back to Lord Desai. Thanks very much for staying very patiently with us. In terms of the Labour Party, we've seen this first clash between Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. Where is the Labour Party now in terms of Keir Starmer's transformation of it from the Jeremy Corbyn days?
Well, you know, the Labour Party has recovered from the worst effect of Jeremy Corbyn's days. It is leading by 30 points plus in the opinion polls, and it is actually very impatient that an election be called. But I think the Conservative Party doesn't need an election right now because it will lose massively. So I think the bet is that Rishi Sunak would be able to stay in power until 2024 and manage the party in such a way that a united party will face the election against Labour in 2024. Now that is a gamble. The Conservative Party has not to fall out in the middle of all that and try and look for yet another Prime Minister. So it's a tough test for Rishi Sunak. He will have to not only do good on finance matters, but he'll have to be a good politician to keep his party together.
And Lord Desai, you left the Labour Party during the Corbyn years, partly, I believe, because of its handling of anti-Semitism within the party. How do you feel Keir Starmer has responded to that? And would you consider rejoining the party?
I'm no longer interested in rejoining any parties. I'm enjoying my life on the crossbenches so that I have no party affiliation and I can independently make my statements according to how I think about any problem and not how my party thinks about the problem. After 30 years on the Labour benches, I'm enjoying my freedom.
All right, so that was Lord Desai joining us live from London. Thank you very much for your thoughts on what's been a pretty eventful couple of weeks in UK politics. I believe we can now cross live to our London correspondent, Alex Isat, who's standing by. Alex, we've been doing some analysis on the last few days or so, Rishi Sunak coming into 10 Downing Street. Just tell us how his first PMQs, his first Prime Minister's questions went facing off against Keir Starmer.
He actually came across quite well, I think, in the dispatch box. People weren't expecting him to come back so much when Keir Starmer was attacking him. But the things that he was expecting, like the fact that he has an extreme amount of wealth, also that the non-dom status of his wife was brought up with many chortles from the back benches there. These were all attacks that Keir Starmer wanted to get to him personally, but ultimately he just brushed past them and moved on. There was a conversation about the Garden Party in Tunbridge Wells, where he said he was going to be helping more of the wealthy people. However, he did say that he apologised for that. But the real issues that we saw today were with regards to what we might see as him as a Prime Minister. And I think he came across that he wants to try and change some of those policies that were put in place by Liz Truss, especially, he didn't quite answer it, but especially with the environmental issues and the fracking issues, obviously that was not received very well by the general public. So we'll see if we can move that forward, because that's not quite gone through all the legislation just yet. Of course, PMQs is now over, but they are going to be speaking about Suella Braverman, the fact that she was reinstated after breaking the ministerial code. Now that seems to be a real issue, not just with opposition parties, but from what I've heard as well within Downing Street itself, there is many concerns that exactly what did she do. Rishi Sunak said it was a soft crime and therefore shouldn't have had to resign over it, but there's still an issue nonetheless. What else has been sent out from personal email addresses that will be coming up again into the future? I think, in general, with the PMQs, it was quite quickly, and he did quite well today.
And Alex, that decision by Rishi Sunak and his Chancellor, who he's reappointed, Jeremy Hunt, to delay that fiscal statement that we were expecting on the 31st of October, what is the messaging there in terms of the message that they're trying to send out to the markets and to international investors?
generally, the fact that they pushed it back to the 17th is being quite well received. The markets haven't changed that much. They haven't been spooked by this. Now, don't forget, originally when Kwasi Kwarteng was still in charge, was the Chancellor, he wanted to say that fiscal statement on the 23rd of November. So actually, the 17th of November is still earlier than the original plan. What we're going to see here is not just a fiscal mid-term statement, but we're going to see an autumn budget. So we will find out exactly where that 30 billion, 40 billion, those numbers still keep going around. We're not 100% sure how much deficit the UK is in at the moment. So we should be finding out. Ultimately, Rishi Sunak has just become the Prime Minister. He's just learning what exactly was put in place by Liz Truss and what Jeremy Hunt had to change after when he became the Chancellor. So although we won't see the OBR forecast, we really do need to know the details. And it's great that he hasn't actually rushed it. It's only going to be a few more days before the 31st of October. So pushing it back to the 17th of November, giving us a fuller statement, can only be positive. And I think the markets are also going to reflect that because they are much calmer. There hasn't actually been much turmoil since the announcement this morning. No real change there. And for the general public, they're going to still not see much difference between the 31st and September because obviously people are still concerned about the rising inflation rates and what the Bank of England are going to do in their mortgages and the cost of living. So those questions will be answered a bit later than we expected. But once we have this autumn statement, that should give us really an oversight for not just over the winter, but looking towards next year as well, which will be a lot longer term than was originally put in place when we were going to have a mini mid-term fiscal statement.
Right, thanks for that. That was our London correspondent, Alex Isat, and some apologies for our difficulties connecting with Alex over the last few minutes or so.